we do break down like these traditional structures that so often are self-imposed. And so one of them is school is 8:30 to 3:30. Students can sign up for an experience across grade levels and be with a teacher for an entire week around something that they're passionate about.
You're listening to the Bold by Choice podcast with Vashaunta Harris and Jim Goenner, where we ask what school could be and learn from the people brave enough to build it. Powered by the National Charter Schools Institute.
Well, friends, welcome back to the Bold by Choice podcast. And I am so super excited that this is our first episode of season 4. Now, season 4 is the charter idea today. We're talking about what is possible. I'm your host, Vashaunta Harris, and I am excited because this season is not just about schools. It is about the ideas that make new kinds of schools possible. Now, we'll be exploring chartering not as an institution, but as a movement rooted in democracy, driven by people committed to ideas, and designed to create something new for students and for communities. We're stepping back a little bit from individual models to examine the thinking, the trade-offs, and the choices that shape what schools can become.
Vashaunta, I am so excited for this season because we are going to go back to chartering and the idea that it is an idea. It is a strategy states can use to make public education better for students and families and for educators. And those ideas have been tested, and we're seeing the fruits of them for the last 30 years since Minnesota got us going. And today we're going to hear from a school that's gotten a lot of attention over the years, but also from a couple awesome leaders.
All right, and joining us in this episode is our friend and colleague, Don Cooper, who's going to help us set the frame for this episode. Welcome back to the show, Don.
Hey, Vashaunta, it's great to be here today.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. And I'm actually going to come to you with our first question today. And you know, the reading argues that public education has a democratic purpose that goes beyond academic achievement. And so when you sit with that idea today, what to you feels most urgent or most misunderstood?
Yeah, great question, Vashaunta. And today's reading it's a chapter in a book, and the chapter is called "The Two Democratic Purposes of Public Education," and it's written by a scholar that many of us are familiar with. His name is Terry Moe, and Terry Moe is probably best known in the charter space, in the school choice space, for a book called Politics, Markets, and America's Schools, which was co-authored with John Chubb, and together that really shaped the way that a lot of people think about public school choice and what makes a public school public and the best ways to provide public education. He builds on some of those concepts within this chapter. And when we think about a school, we think about it being a democratic institution in a couple of ways. First, it exists for a democratic purpose, and it's preparing people for citizenship. So for a self-governing republic to continue to exist, we need smart people, we need virtuous people, we need people who are able to step up and self-govern. And by self-govern, we mean two things. One is take care of themselves and their families and their communities. So govern yourself. And the second thing we mean is participate in civic life. So make decisions at the state and national level. And in order to do that, we need public education to convey values and convey what's important and what it means to be an American today. The second thing that's democratic about public schools is they're public institutions, like a lot of public institutions. So like parks, like some public hospitals, like city government. And that has a special meaning because we expect certain things of our public institutions. We expect them to operate in certain ways. We have normative expectations for how they spend funds, for how they interact with members of the public, for their openness to ideas, for their openness to people coming in. So I think that's really what he's getting at with those two aspects of it. And it's just a tension within public education that I'm not sure that we've fully resolved over time, especially in the school choice space. Because so often in school choice, we think about public, and one of the innovations of chartering is that when we think about public, these are public schools in the sense that they are open to members of the public, open, they accept everyone who's coming in, They don't discriminate in admissions. They receive public funds. They operate within public normative boundaries on things, but they might not be run by public employees. You're working with other organizations, nonprofit organizations that have charters to allow them to operate as public schools. So there's a little bit of a tension, a little bit of a shift there. And I think that's what Terry's talking about within this article.
Yeah, I agree. And we're talking about like these two different ideas or these tensions. And one of them is the author is distinguishing between schools as democratic institutions and the schools that kind of simply deliver education to that public, as you were just talking about.
Yeah.
So, Jim, I'd like to bring you in on this question. Where do you see that distinction playing out most clearly or breaking down in today's education system?
There is so much talk right now about schools as a delivery system, schools as a place where kids go to get skills and abilities to get jobs, schools that are designed to raise math and test scores and close achievement gaps. What we're talking about here is public education as civic infrastructure. And that's a huge distinction and mind shift. And yet that's where public education started. It's why it's embedded in each state's constitution. And when you go look at the clauses in the state constitutions, it really is about this notion that education is civic infrastructure. Well, what do you mean by that? It means that education is core to helping civil society function. And the reason is we need educated citizens. And our way to do that is to have schools that we fund publicly make sure that they're prepared to take on the duties and responsibilities of citizenship. It's why when I do a lot of public speaking, I show that flag in We the People and say the real experiment isn't charter schools. The real experiment is America. And can a free people self-govern and take responsibility?
Absolutely. And you're calling out another one of those tensions. And Don, I'll come to you for this next question. Democratic purpose often creates these tensions that we're talking about, sometimes between efficiency and participation, sometimes between coherence and diversity, and other times between consistency and choice. Which of those tensions do you think schools most often underestimate?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. There really is a lot there within those tensions. And one of the things about public institutions in general and schools specifically is you have so many different constituencies you serve. And with schools, you have different families that you're serving, different elements of the community, different stakeholders, and everybody has a slightly different set of values as to what they want to see come out of the schools. So democratic institutions like schools have a big job, and that's balancing the values that their stakeholders have to try to arrive at something that we would call the common good that's going to be good for everybody, even though everybody might not always agree to it at first. It's advancing civil society and advancing the purposes for which our communities in our nation was founded on things. Because of this balance, because of the tensions between the multiple issues, my goodness, it really is easy for schools to just revert back to doing what they've always done. It's easy when schools can rely on what a legislature says, or rely on a so-called best practice is the one best way of doing things. And the reason it's easy because it avoids the conflict that sometimes comes with trying to negotiate out multiple competing values of different groups who have different visions on things. So, if anything, going back to kind of reverting back to the mean, reverting back to the way things always done, that's where I think a lot of schools fall
Mhm.
short on this. And I'd encourage anyone who's listening who runs a school or sits on a school board and has to be in a position to make those decisions, to take on that challenge and to have those tough conversations and seek for the common good in what you're trying to accomplish at your school.
Vashaunta, when education fails, the cost doesn't show up immediately, but it always comes due.
Tell us more about that. That just felt like rich and heavy and landed. Tell us a little bit more about what you're thinking there.
We see where education is failing a lot. But the immediate consequence doesn't often show up until years down the road. And we're all talking right now about the times and the humanity and the lack of civility. And yet that is the purpose of public education, to ensure we have prepared citizens, to ensure civic society, to ensure that people can be different but united by a common purpose. And the breakdown of education over time has a cost. We're feeling it.
Yeah, Vashanta, I'm just going to expound on that a little bit and a little more specifically than Jim, because he's right in this, in that when we see challenges in public education, we don't always see the effects of those challenges until later on. I think what we're seeing right now is, issues with how we've taught civics, social studies, and government in America's public schools dating back 25 years or so. And civics, social studies, government, these are all things that are essential for people to learn, because when a child goes to school, that child might go off and be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. They have lots of career options. They might go into the trades. Who knows it? But the one thing that every one of them is going to be is a citizen. And they are all going to be asked to participate in their communities, in their states, and their nations in certain ways, through voting, through civic dialogue on stuff. So a very long time ago, we made a couple of decisions on things. We decided that the core of education is English language arts and math. And that kind of meant that those subjects that advance civic education, that advance people's ability to participate democratically, weren't seen as that important anymore. The second thing is, because the social studies and civics and government involve competing values on things, both the Democrats and the Republicans were really concerned about who set the curricula for it. And the result was nobody set the curricula for it. So we've had a lot of weak civics and social studies and government education for a long time in America. And I think we're starting to see that reflected in how people interact with their government, their trust in government, voter participation rates, service, just a basic understanding of the three branches. So I think when Jim says that the cost shows up later in life, that's the kind of things that he's talking about.
Mm, totally understood.
Rashawn, to be really blunt, with no education system, there's no democracy. And to take it deeper, when we reduce education to test scores or job pipelines, we shrink its purpose.
That's so rich. And I'm glad you both have pulled out these tensions and also a little bit of that history. Because what I want listeners to hear as we go to our next school are examples of schools who are tackling this issue head on, schools that are deeply engaged in how their students truly become, exactly as you just said, really responsible and thoughtful citizens. Well, let's go ahead and welcome them to the show. Family, joining us today is Brett Peterson, director at High Tech High, a school that has been living out some of these examples like pluralism for over 20 years. And with him is Isabella Coralez, a junior at High Tech High, whose voice will help ground today's ideas in the real student experience. Brett, Isabella, we are so glad you're here, and thank you both for being a part of this conversation.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Well, Brett, let's begin with you. We got a chance to talk the other day, but I'd love for us to kick off with you just doing an introduction to our listeners about who you are as a person and as a leader.
I appreciate the question. I think it's important to start with the fact that I was raised to be a lawyer. My father was a lawyer, and his father was a lawyer. My uncle was a lawyer, and they were all in the Army. And I found myself in college, in Army ROTC, preparing to be a lawyer. And I got the chance to study abroad in Austria. And I was on a mountaintop in the Alps, and I had an epiphany that I didn't want to be a lawyer. And then instead, I wanted to be a teacher. And so I flew home and I told my parents that I was going to be a teacher. And my mother immediately began crying, and my father left the room. Uh, so it wasn't a smooth start, but from there, It really, once they realized that their son was happy and fulfilled, they were happy for me. And I know that's what your parents want for you is to be happy and fulfilled. And who knows, maybe you'll be a teacher one day. I don't know. No, not so much. All right. Well, we're trying. And then after that, I found my way to community college teaching, where I was teaching, 40 students, the same exact thing out of a textbook, and stumbled upon a high-tech high here in San Diego and became a teacher and taught world religions and humanities and German and all the things and internship and did that for 5 years. And then took over as a division head, as a principal, as a director, what we call it, and have served in that role for three of our schools, including High Tech High Mesa, which is our newest high school, which opened in 2018.
That's so exciting. Well, Isabella, now let's go to you. How would you like for our listeners to know you?
I'm Isabella. I'm a junior here at High Tech High Mesa. I'm a student athlete. I'm a leader here. And I don't have much history. I'm not as cool as Brett is, but
Well, that means you're not as old as me.
So, Isabella, did you pick High Tech High? Did your parents pick High Tech High? Tell us your story.
my parents actually picked this school. For my sister who has an IEP, they found that it was going to be a lot help. It was going to help her a lot more in the long run for getting assistance in that area compared to other public schools. So she actually got admitted first because of her IEP. And then my grade wasn't available for me at the time, so I waited another year before I was accepted for 6th grade when I came in.
So you had to leave all your friends behind from your elementary school who all went to different schools, and then you came to this funky new school called High Tech High.
I didn't know anybody.
What was that like?
It was I was nervous at first, especially because it was during COVID when I transferred. So I started high tech online, which was a lot different from what it is in person, because a lot of those project-based stuff, it wasn't as easily accessible to get hands-on when you're at home looking at it from behind a screen. But I did really like it. And then after a year, I was able to come in person and start doing all these cool projects and going on all these field trips. And now I'm here.
So let's get kind of into it. Brett, I'm going to come over to you because we know that High Tech High was created at a moment when employers, civic leaders, the business community were almost saying something like, students are graduating without necessarily the language or the skills or the confidence needed for this kind of 21st century world we're coming into. So what problem or what was one of the design challenges or design questions that the founders of High Tech High really grappled with? And why did PBL, project-based learning, integrated into this design feel like the right thing to do at that moment?
Yeah, that's great. Well, our founders really wanted to answer that call from the business community. And the business community had they took their hubris to the side and had the humility to say, we're actually not educators, and can we turn it over to you? And the founders were indeed educators who had just completed the new urban high school project, going around the entire country, taking the best of what was working here, there, and everywhere, whether it was at Debbie Meyer's school in Harlem, or it was at Hoover High School here in San Diego, or a lot of schools in between, where they were essentially taking the best parts of all of those different schools. And in that moment, they realized they needed to hold on to advisory, an academic internship program. They needed to make sure that the school that they built was small, where the students were known and known well by the adults in the building, and that they needed to have a very simple schedule so that the agents could behave in really complex ways in that schedule. I hope there's a follow-up question about that. And then also is like that we need students to build and to create and to do because they are so capable. And when we do that, and they are in project groups, and we are, we believe that learning, happens, it is constructed socially. We believe that learning happens when you teach and you create and you build and you do, that the product is a graduate who we can very boldly say is ready for college and the world of work. And that's borne out, in our success with 10,000 alumni and, 25 years of doing this. And so the business community has been very happy with, with our graduates, and they have been able to then hire our alumni who go into their offices and their corporations and are the ones who are bold innovators and are not afraid to work in teams. They yearn to collaborate. They're eager to present their ideas. They are, very adept at being clear in their thinking and in their communicating, all skills that the business community really is hungry for in their new hires.
Isabella, I'm really interested as you listen to that origin story and how your school came to be. How do you see those pieces showing up in your own experience?
They're everywhere. Everything that you just mentioned, I'm like, that makes sense. um, one of the things that he said was about communication and how it prepares us for sharing our ideas and for being able to communicate well. I see that very prominently in our school through our SLCs and POLs. Instead of having a parent-teacher conference or having something of that sort, we present our learning to our parents and our teachers, helping us better prepare for presentations in front of large groups of people, bettering our public speaking skills and things like that. I see it a lot in our school. Another thing I'd like to mention is the teamwork and collaboration. Over the 6 years that I've been here, I've had to be in a lot of different kinds of group settings and group projects with people that I might not work well with, or people that were different. So through that, I think in the real world, that's going to come up a lot. And I see how that's very beneficial to be able to collaborate and work together with people who you may not agree with and problem solve and make a good end result or end product.
Could use a little more of that in this world of ours right now, I think.
Oh, so much more.
Brett, High Tech High made some very intentional structural choices. Small school size, teaching teams, integrated courses, no tracking, and only 3 teachers per semester. Why were those decisions so important to the learning experience you wanted students to have?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I think it's an important question of an administrator because we're usually the ones who are mucking up the schedule and putting the barriers in place to prevent the kind of learning that happens here at High Tech High. Which is to say that even though you have those structures in place, the temptation is to change them, right? To maybe be more efficient or to, make for an easier day for some, constituents. And we really resist the impulse to what we call like a reversion to the mean, right? To a traditional approach to structures and schedules. Because when we are able and have the flexibility to create the schedule that we want, we are actually able to bear out the fruit of our design principles. And so that does not mean that if we had 3,000 students, we couldn't do projects, but it sure is a lot easier to do it with 420 students. If you're a teacher, you can do projects and have internships if you see 200 students a day, but it's a lot harder and the quality of the projects probably won't be there versus Isabella's teaching team, right? Her humanities teacher sees 25 students in the morning for two and a half hours and 25 students in the afternoon for 2.5 hours. And that's it. So the teachers, by having fewer students, are able to invest so much more in their students and so much more in their projects. So I think it's pretty easy for school leaders to say, listen, these are the things we want, but we have an obligation to create the structures to facilitate those things that we want. And what are those things, right? It's what Isabella was talking about, is that it's breaking down these siloed subject areas. Why should humanities and biology not be linked and together? So the project that she's doing right now involves various academic facets. And in traditional schools, we want to divide those facets into these separate silos. And it's just so important for, again, our original calling for the business world to integrate. And that is what High Tech High is about. It's less about the technology and it's more about the integration, not only of subject matter, but the integration of our heads and our hearts and our hands. And so for Isabella, she'll have a Socratic seminar debating what is like the moral answer around solutions to the San Diego River. She's using her head because she's, conducting water quality samples and which again, don't drink that water. And then also she's using her hands because she's going to fabricate and build something that is enduring for the San Diego River. So we really think about integration when we think about like those structures.
What I also hear in that is rigor and relevance. And, when you just learn something because somebody said so versus you've got a reason, it just unleashes a whole different level of what most would call deeper learning.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I you use the word rigor there, and that is like, any word in education gives us pause. And at high tech high, rigor isn't read five more pages and do five more math problems, right? So rigor really is about authentic learning and really integrating those different mindsets.
And in a relevant context, right? We're talking about
Absolutely.
the river, we're learning about the river, we're testing the river. And then what are we going to do to make the river better so we can drink the water? So I love that you're doing the hands, the heart, the head. Isabella, this is adults talking. You're the one that actually feels this in every day. Tell us, what's it like to have fewer teachers and real integration and deeper learning?
I think for me, through the last 6 years of being here, I've had very few teachers, and I'm really grateful for that. Only because they know me. All these teachers, they know me by name after the first week, and after that, we just build strong connections, and it makes everyone feel seen and feel heard because they know you on a more personal level, as they don't have 100 students, they have maybe like 50. So I feel really connected with my teachers, and I can tell that all of them are really dedicated as to what they're teaching. They all really want to be there and want to be there for us and to be teaching us these things. So my biology teacher, he's always there for me, but also he's very passionate about water. And he's able to tell me all these things and answer all my questions about anything I ask him. And my humanities teacher, who's really interested in political stuff, and he's able to tell me all about policies and also there for me if I have any questions or if I need anything from him. It's just nice having that care and that drive from my teachers all throughout
Pe-
my high tech high experience.
Beautiful. People, passion, and purpose. So, Brett, my dad used to tell me, son, don't get education, schools, and learning mixed up. We use them interchangeably, but they don't mean the same thing. Part of your design has been bringing the outside world into the classroom. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, we achieve that architecturally. So most of our walls in our schools are actually glass, right? So that we physically, we're not trying to hide anything away. And so if I walk by the biotech lab and I see Isabella uh, pipetting, that's a word, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Isabella's pipetting in the biotech lab. It's like I can see that, right? And then she sees me walking by. And so our walls really are glass to bring our students out into, right, the world and to bring the world into our classrooms, right? And so whether that's the rangers that our teachers have partnered with through this project, it brings that human experience in and links what is otherwise a very separate experience and world. And back to Isabella's point of noting that, so she talked about relationships with adults, which is very important for us, but also the passion. I did not tell her science teacher to do a project on water. I didn't. He brought to me the idea I'm going to do a project on water because I used to be a scientist and I'm an expert on water and field biology. So that means that Isabella is going to do a water project. I, of course, want that teacher to teach something that they are tremendously passionate about. Now, that does mean that we're going to go a lot deeper into one aspect of science, and it means that every facet of biology isn't going to be covered, right? To education, to schools, to learning, right? And so, anyway, bringing in the outside world into our schools is very important. And we're doing that today with academic internship interview day, and all of our students are going to secure internships where they'll go out into the field for over a month and work in companies and NGOs and nonprofits all around San Diego, California, and the country.
Wonderful. Isabella, can you share a project or experience where it went from learning to something that was really personal and changed you?
It's a great question. My freshman and sophomore year, I had two different projects that were based on formerly incarcerated individuals or incarcerated individuals who are in prison at the moment. So I got to see, or it gave me more of a perspective on, I remember thinking like I had never seen, or I never had this perspective on what this is all like for individuals who were previously incarcerated coming into the real world. It really fascinated me, and I was super intrigued by this project. And by the end of it, I was so interested in this political side of how society treats these people who were formerly incarcerated and who are trying to come into the real world. It really fascinated me. And I was telling my parents all about it every day I got home and talking about how interested I was in these people and their stories and how to help these people. At the end of the project, we ended up coming up with a plan for a website to help these people get secure jobs. And it was just tying in my personal interests and real world and things that are happening right now, helping these people who need help finding jobs. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you did that project, and I walked into your classroom, and there was a group working, and I just was asking them what's going on. They're like, "Hey, we can't talk to you about this."
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "You didn't sign the NDA." And I was like, "Oh, right. Indeed, I didn't. Excuse me." And so they all had to. They met with lawyers. They had to sign NDAs because they were working on actual cases of actual folks who claimed innocence as part of the California Innocence Project. And so the students were actually reviewing the files and giving a presentation,
Memo.
right, to the actual lawyers to say, should you try and pursue this more or not? And the lawyers listen to them because they are doing pro bono. They only have so much time. And our students spent substantive time really reviewing all of the facets of the case. And yeah, it was fascinating. So wait, does that mean you want to be a lawyer? Okay. All right. We'll see.
The other day, I was really intrigued about the way in which you have intentionally designed spaces for true and authentic relationship building across the entire culture of the school, adults and students alike. And so, Brett, I want to come to you first and just really ask, like we talked about, advisory, we talked about home visits and exhibitions and teachers working with small numbers of students. Why do the relationships really sit at the core in the center of the school's design rather than being treated as extra?
That's a great question. I think I'd start just by saying because we're all human beings. We're relational. And when you combine that with an idea that we treat students and their ideas seriously, that's when you really forge true relationships and partnerships. So I'm a partner in Isabella's learning. Just because I'm slightly older than her doesn't mean that I'm any better than her or more important than her. Like my office is any at any given time, my office is either I'm in here or maybe there are students filming in here or interviewing somebody for a podcast themselves. And so it's a flexible space because, there's no space that's owned by any of us, which is one of the reasons why, our students treat their, tables and chairs and bathrooms a lot better than maybe other more traditional public schools because they feel ownership over the space because they are equals among many. And so it's those relationships that we return to when things go wrong. We're a school filled with human beings, and so we leak oil every day. And sometimes there's conflict with humans. And we really rely on those relationships with our parent community or with the students themselves or with colleagues to really ensure that we come to an understanding, that we learn and grow from the conflict and then move on. So it's those relationships that allow us to really see great successes in whether it is advisory or the exhibitions or the projects because Isabella has the relationships with those teachers, she's able to go so much deeper and into the projects and the learning because she trusts her teachers. And so we like to say that we have a culture of trust in our school. My boss is the CEO of High Tech High, and she trusts me to lead and to run this school. I trust our teachers to teach wonderful projects based on their academic passions. The teachers trust the students to work in groups and to do their work, right? And so that's why if you see a student walking down the hallway at High Tech High, there is no bathroom pass. The presumption is that they are urgently, going about their work, or maybe they need to pee. Either way, they don't need a pass. They're human beings, and it's about relationships.
That's right. And Isabella, I want to actually have you dive deeply with us into advisory. Can you share with us how advisory has been structured for you across your time at High Tech High?
Yes. Great question. I have been with my advisor since freshman year. He actually came to my house before school even started and sat down with my mom and I and told us about High Tech High and was like, "You're going to do great here. I can't wait to spend the rest of your 4 years with you." And that was my first look at my advisor. I am still with him now. He is actually now my humanities teacher, my internship teacher, my track coach, and my advisor.
Wow.
Oh.
He is everything, and I trust him because I've known him for the 3 years that I've been here, and he's everything apparently. Yeah, and I'd also like to bring in the relationships, not only with the teacher, who I have a strong relationship with him. I'd also like to bring in the student relationships. I have a bunch of friends in my advisory, whether it be from my grade or for underclassmen. I know the two freshmen in my advisory by name. I see them in the hallways and I wave. I think they're really cool. And when I was a freshman, I knew some of the juniors and seniors, and they knew me by name, and they would wave to me in the halls. It's full circle for me to be able to treat those underclassmen the same way that I was treated when I first came, and building those relationships and building those connections throughout my entire career here at High Tech High.
And I love that the advisory is not set up by grade level. That's another kind of breaking down those hierarchies that exist in other spaces. And I don't know about you all, but I know when I was a freshman, it was very intimidating to be in a building with however many other kids. And especially with the juniors and seniors, but also how like affirming it was when an older upperclassman had a relationship with you and acknowledged you. And I love that like that is a part of the design. And you all aren't, creating these structures that can accidentally become barriers as students matriculate.
Yeah, and that's intentional. And it would have been so much easier. Think about it from an administrative perspective. It would have been so much easier to have single grade level advisories, right? And so it's like all nine, all 10, all 11. And to have mixed grade level was really hard, especially when you're starting a new school. And like most things, if it's harder, it's better. And having that exposure to other grade levels. And it's not just in advisory, it's also when you have adventures. So, what are some of the adventures? I just got back from Julian, which is like a place in East County where we go to pick apples with my advisory. And all of my students decided to buy dead crickets that were sour cream flavored and eat crickets. I don't know. But guess what? They had an adventure and they get to like bond over like crickets, I guess. But hopefully, what have you done recently?
I think next week I'm going to play mini golf with my advisory. We're taking half the day just to get in vans and go play mini golf for an afternoon.
Love that. What about college day?
Oh, for college day, I went to Chicago and Boston to go visit some colleges up on the East Coast. I was able to see Harvard, MIT, some very prestigious schools. But at the same time, I was really able to connect with my group because we were on a plane together. We were sleeping in the same area. We were connecting and having all these inside jokes and living together for 3 days. It's a very, how do I say it? It's a very connecting moment. And these are things and events and trips that we take that really bring us together that you probably wouldn't have with someone who you only see in a classroom setting.
Absolutely. And we are going to go to the last question. But before that, I'd love to give you both a chance to talk about intercession, because I think that's a big part of what's coming up for you next too, Isabella. Is that right?
Yes. Or no, not for me.
Well, so it's intercession for the lower school, and then you have the Bay Area College road trip at the same
Yeah.
time. So yeah, it happens at the same time. Yeah. So why don't you describe the Bay Area College road trip, I guess?
I am going to Northern California to go visit a few colleges up there. I don't know too much about the road trip.
Oh yeah, you haven't done it yet. Oh, right, that's fair.
So I know that I'm going, but other than that,
It'll be very fun. Don't worry, I promise you. Yeah, so we the whole junior class, we put them on giant buses and we go visit colleges up and down California. So we are, right, we are many things. We are a progressive project-based learning school where all kids are going to four-year colleges, right? And so a lot of that has to do with exposure to various campuses. Our more affluent families will go visit colleges, around the country either way. And for our middle class and working class families, maybe sometimes that's not the case, that they'll be able to hop on a plane to go visit colleges in Chicago or in Boston. So it's a special part of our community. And so intercession, we especially like, and that was this idea that students can sign up for an experience across grade levels and be with a teacher for an entire week around something that they're passionate about. And we break all we just kind of, we don't break all the rules. I'm so sorry. Is this being recorded? We follow the law, but we do break down like these traditional structures that so often are self-imposed. And so one of them is school is 8:30 to 3:30. That's a structure, right? And so what is the reality is that you can be flexible around that. And so we have an astrophysics astronomy intersession that they actually gather at school at 7 p.m. and they meet from 7 p.m. to midnight and they meet on the roof so that they can look at stars. And then they go out to the desert and with a $65,000 telescope, actually, in partnership with a local science company, and get to see real stars. And so another one is Haunted San Diego, where every day they go see the Queen Mary or the Hotel del Coronado, famous haunted places, and they read haunted stories, and it's spooky. And every year there's a student who claims they've seen a ghost, depending on what you believe. But it's like it's this like, wait a minute, can I go with a group of students and spend 8 hours doing this amazing thing all week long, right? So we're trying to really break down these self-imposed structures, and we have to do them ourselves because we rest on our laurels and we get too comfortable. And it's important to refresh ourselves and to rethink that a lot of what we do doesn't need to be done the exact same way each and every time.
And are there opportunities for dual enrollment where you're earning college credit in high school?
Yes, there is. I am actually taking my third college class right now, partnering with Mesa College. I have taken two math classes and I'm taking psychology right now, but they offer so many classes since your freshman year. Things like English, psychology, statistics, algebra, pre-calc, calc, all these different opportunities that people are able to take from the beginning. And if there's a class that isn't offered on the standard list, you can talk to our college, what's it called?
College counselor.
No, it's Liz.
Oh, Mary Beth?
Yes.
Oh,
What
yeah.
is she?
Yeah, it's a college counselor.
College counselor. Where she can show you how to enroll in these other classes like foreign languages, or I know someone who is taking something having to do with medical in the medical field. So they have so many opportunities to do these things, whether it be asynchronous or hybrid in person. And it's just an amazing opportunity to add to my resume.
I'm just picturing you on this bus tour getting off to go to these colleges and be like, yeah, I'm already a college student. I've got 12 credits.
Yeah, we have it's somewhere in the neighborhood of at any given time, a third to half of our school is taking a college class. And if we talk about college prep, it's like, what's better college prep than
College.
college? Yeah, right. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's been very popular for our students.
So as I said, I'm the father of 7. I've been down this road, but I'll tell you what, having college credit as a high school student when it's not a penny out of your parents' pocket is some of the best return on investment you can ever get.
That's right. Well, Brett, Isabella, thank you both so much for your time and sharing your stories. It has been indeed a treat.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Don, I'm going to invite you back in as we head to the close. And I want to return to some of the ideas that we opened with. And so now that we've thought about our reading, we've heard from this amazing team at High Tech High, what are some things that are standing out to you that have really confirmed the original idea around chartering?
Yeah, great question. It was just great to spend time with everyone today because High Tech High is such an inspiration and a model for so many other schools in the nation. And I think it really is a proof point, and not a local proof point, but a national proof point that systems change, the way we think about what I'll call the school technology, the way school days are organized, putting decision-making authority closer to kids. That really does work, and that really is getting results for kids. And so I just think the first thing that's important from this conversation is it confirms some of the thinking that changing the system and the structure is going to change the outcomes, and High Tech High has proven that it can be done. Another area that I kind of reflect on in this is, our goal collectively is to have great education for kids. And there are so many things that go into providing kids with a great education, and schools are a big part of it, right? Schools are an institution in our communities that both reflect the values that we have and reflect what's important to a community, and also shape those values in what's important in to the future and future generations. So there's a lot of things that happen in schools that affect great learning, great teaching and learning. There's a lot of stuff that happens out of schools. So I think one of the great things about High Tech High is it's showing that this can be done through systems change. But this is also a reminder that there's so many other things within society that we need to think about and affect in order to really have the type of educational system and the type of prosperous society that we really want. 21st century schools and charter schools like High Tech High aren't going to solve all the problems, but they sure are a good start in making great progress toward that, and that's why we need more of them.
Absolutely. Well, as we close today's conversations, because we are definitely at time, we are continuously reminded that great schools do not happen by accident. They happen because people are willing to work together, to think differently, to design intentionally, and to stay grounded in what students actually experience every single day.
And at its best, the charter idea isn't about uniform solutions. It's about creating space for different approaches to flourish while staying accountable to the public and to the young people's futures.
Well, friends, we'll be back same bad time, same bad station next week. Until then, stay bold.